I know that you're fed up, but Spirit needs you to keep going. You are currently navigating the underworld in your career or maybe in a relationship. Specifically, you're witnessing creature-like energy, energy that doesn't think for itself, but just acts. So haters, bot kind of energy, or just in general, people who should not have access to you but do, simply because you're on a public platform. We need you to keep going. You need to have your own autonomy over yourself in the situation to remain quiet. Not necessarily overall, but towards these people. Your greatest power is to make them realize that they don't even deserve to have a one word or one breath from you. So blocking is going to be your favorite tool. I would not respond to the energy. I would very much not respond to the energy. It's going to drain you more than it's going to help you. Specifically in this situation, we need you to pretend like you have headphones on and you can't hear them, like literally. And the reason why is because whenever you're focusing on them, you're not focusing on who you actually need to focus on, which is community. And essentially you're saying, I'd rather be in my victim pity me energy than actually build. So it really shows your character whenever you're constantly focusing on the negative of the situation, and we just want the best for you. This is a very difficult situation though. We have to give you credit. Thanatos is coming through, a huge death, a huge rebirth. I definitely got an analogy watching some of the creator last night talk about the spider web and how sometimes people will like to either string you along or try to wrap you in cords by triggering you. Just don't even interact with it. That's the only way to prevent any strings from being connected. If you think of somebody like reaching their hand out to create a cord with you, if you don't interact with them, you can't give them your side of the cord to connect. You think of like a knot being tied. It can only happen from your energy being sent their way. You can feel what you're gonna feel. You can cry it out. You can even like shake it out, whatever it may be. But when you respond physically out loud and defend yourself or get into that defensive energy in any way, shape, or form, even if it's funny, I have to say it, but even if it's funny, you're creating a cord, and it is what it is. We do have the mother card being the first card to come out, and it's the first card of this entire deck. You need to step into the mother archetype right now. And what would you want your mother, if you know, they were in the highest vibration possible, to do if they were being hated on? Would you, and they had the responsibility to take care of you, would you want them focusing on their haters, or would you want them focusing on taking care of you? Because essentially it's what you need to choose. Are you going to take care of you? Are you going to take care of whatever you're building? Or are you going to focus on naysayers and egg throwers, tomato throwers? Do you understand the difference here? This is the underworld energy. Once again, we do want to give you credit. This is difficult energy. I would call upon maybe gods or goddesses that can help you. Persephone, Hades can be helpful. Hecate can be helpful. Lilith can be very helpful if you're dealing with masculine energies that are trying to dominate you in any way. Calling upon Lilith can create some really bad karma for those people because you don't even have to lift a finger and Lilith will do it for you. Yeah, you really need to depend on your constituents more, your acquaintances, your peers, and your spiritual team. You have a lot of big animal spiritual guides, probably dragons, tigers, sphinxes, eagles, like owls, like all of that. And when you're sitting there trying to do the work for them, they can't get in between you and the thing. So yeah, you're not going to be able to see all the time what happens to these people. 99% of the time you won't see what happens to them. But if you can just visualize in your mind what happens to them, that'll help you a lot more move forward, because we all do have a shadow side, and that's the last part I want to get to. We all have a shadow side. We all have things that we're working through, and to think that you are completely and utterly healed and never going to have a trigger moment again, it's kind of ridiculous. So if you know that you have a shadow side, you know that sometimes you just want to be wrath and rage, because to be quite honest, there's a lot to be angry about in the world. If you know that that's a part of you that you need to work through, let it channel through you in the most positive way possible so it can actually serve you and the people witnessing it. Okay, because here's the whole concept is anger misdirected creates more fire on the problem. But if you can direct it properly, you can actually alchemize it. And therefore, I would say almost treat the situation exactly how your higher self wants you to treat it, and the whole reason your higher self manifested it for you to come in, right? Because sometimes we get really overwhelmed by a big death and rebirth of, see the hands joining, yeah, that chord I was talking about, of the test of time, the trials and tribulations is what I just heard, that come with stepping into a spotlight of any sort, of doing something worth something in this lifetime. We are like, oh, well, why can't it just be all sunshine and rainbows? I don't see any sunshines and rainbows in your reading, but I do see the sun card, which, although it's hiding behind all of this, it's like, well, and the Magician too, you created it, you know, that can really help you. And Ace of Swords, every situation brings you more clarity. You can actually use these situations to anchor you into deeper confidence, anchor you into new ideas. They are actually not always supposed to be a big trigger. Sometimes a hater or a situation is actually supposed to spark something within you to go deeper into your work or to create something new even, but not necessarily give up on what you're doing. I have noticed, and just some personal advice here, I've had like platforms and things like that in my life where I was getting an unnecessary amount of like attention I didn't want on, it was just like one of like influencer platforms and such, and I noticed it was time to pivot. So it's not that haters are always right, but it's more so like a energy of what kind of attention do you actually want? And depending on what kind of content you're creating, you're going to majority of the time get a certain kind of attention. And is that what you want? And so sometimes, let's say if you make content, like funny content, but people are always roasting you in the comments because you are creating funny content. That's the whole premise of it, right? You can't get too upset about that. Figure out like, well, if I'm roasting people in my video, then of course I'm gonna get roasted in the comments. You know, the balance that's gonna be there a little bit. And pivot if you don't feel like that's something you wanna deal with in the long term. But on top of it, see what you can set up, parameters you can set up. You can filter words on things like TikTok to where you don't have to deal with so much nonsense. That's what I just heard. There are so many different ways to get to the root of things. New moon in Aries, yeah. To handle Aries energy, to handle the mess of things. We don't have to become the mess just because we are witnessing a mess. And whenever you are witnessing people who have no jurisdiction over their own power, in other words, they are wielding their sword willy-nilly and not thinking about the consequences of their actions, that's an opportunity for you to double down and think about the consequences of yours and what you're doing and how you're doing it and why you're doing it. Because the more that you can be courageous, your call to action card, courageous, be unstoppable, the more that you will feel free to be able to go and do whatever it is that you want to do without so much fear mongering around it. There's always going to be a hater, there's always going to be a situation, there's always going to be some bullshit. How can you lessen that or really learn to understand that usually it's a sign that you're on the right path in the first place? Yeah, pivot if you need to pivot to work things out for yourself better, but I don't really think that there's much pivoting other than just taking care of yourself as much as you possibly can. The best way to not attract in things you don't want to attract in is to raise your frequency to one of, I would just say, self-love overall. Like the more that you love yourself, the more that you feel into that self-love, the less that your aura will even attract in that stuff. So but it's always non-linear, you know, just remember that as well. It's non-linear. Just because you've done a ton of work and you've been up here for a while doesn't mean you won't have moments where you dip back in. So one content that you create one day isn't going to be indicative of your entire journey, just like 1 year isn't indicative of your entire life. So just ride the waves is pretty much what I'm saying. Ride the waves, stop trying to fight it so much. And yeah, if you don't want to talk to them, don't. I love you.